Our next storyteller, I think this is the first time she's been on stage. Well, certainly the first time she's been on stage in a very, very long time. And she's driven quite a distance to come here today to tell us a story. She's come down from the Blue Mountains. So let's give her a really big, warm, glebe welcome to Sydney and welcome to the stage. Please welcome Melissa Jacobs.
Thank you, Catherine. When I was in primary school, I had a really specific goal. Now, a lot of people have goals, you know, they want to come first in a race, or they want to be really rich, or want to be on stage. And I too had a goal. And this goal formed in my mind with like this crystal clarity when something in my third grade class happened. And what happened was that a girl in the class, Katrina Halloran, she broke her arm. Now, until this time, Katrina Halloran was quite unremarkable, at least in my mind. She sort of blended in with all the other long-haired, ponytailed girls, and she was really polite and pretty and nice. But this incident, breaking her arm, sort of catapulted her into this whole new realm. Like overnight, she was an instant sort of celebrity. She had a new desk right up at the front of the class, and the teacher was always sort of fussing over her. And the cast on her arm had this dual purpose of, like, on the one hand it was had the purpose of mending her broken radius, but the other purpose was like became the class tabloid, and so everyone would be coming up to write on the cast and read the cast to see who loved who and who stank and draw little pictures. And it wasn't just this. The rest of us in the class, we had to wait until it was recess or lunchtime for us to go to the bathroom, but Katrina, she could go to the bathroom whenever she wanted to. I mean, how her arm affected her bladder, I still don't know. The teacher, Mrs. Cooper her name was, and she'd say, "I'm looking for someone who's willing to give up their valuable class time to go to the toilet, Katrina." And I would all of us, but I was like straining, putting my hand up as high as I possibly could and trying to create this particular concoction of like desperation yet helpfulness. I wanted to look really, really helpful. And then Mrs. Cooper would always say the same thing all the time. She'd say, "Matthew Johnston, put your hand down. I'm looking for a girl to accompany Katrina to the toilet." The thing, though, that really got to me was the injustice of this situation. Like, it wasn't like Katrina had achieved something really incredible to get all this attention. You know, she'd broken her arm, and it just seemed so unfair to me, you know, all this stuff she got, you know, the cast and the desk and the appointment with the psychologists. And after that, I used to watch her really intently. The main reason why Katrina got this unprecedented amount of attention was because it wasn't just that she broke her arm, but this was had some kind of impact with her, because she took this self-imposed vow of silence and she didn't speak, right? She didn't actually speak. True story, she didn't speak until she was in high school. And I watched Katrina like with the devotion of like a serial killer or something. I'd be straining to see if she'd speak or what she wanted, and I noticed, you know, that Mrs. Cooper would always be orbiting her desk, and all the popular kids would be running up to read her cast, and that's when I realised that is exactly what I wanted. I wanted to break a bone, and I wanted it to render me speechless, at least for a little while, before I could then tell everybody exactly what happened. Then months passed. And despite my best efforts, like jumping out of trees and swinging off the double bunks and doing BMX jumps and going down next door neighbours' really steep driveway really fast in roller skates, like nothing happened. And then years passed. Matthew Johnston broke his leg or arm again. My cousin broke her arm, and lots of other people did, and still nothing. I still wasn't able to break anything. And then when I was 16, everything changed. I met Chris. Now, I first heard that Chris liked me when my best friend's older sister told me that a boy in her French class had written me a love letter. Now, it wasn't just any letter, it was a French love letter. And the next couple of days I received this letter, and I was just, even though I couldn't actually speak and still can't speak a word of French, It was the most romantic thing that anyone could or would ever do for me. And I took the letter home and I was butchering it, trying to speak this French language phonetically in front of the mirror. And the letter, he had like kissed it, I think, with his mother's lipstick and sprayed it with her perfume, which I thought was just the sweetest, sweetest thing. But now I think it's sort of a little bit dangerously Oedipal or something. Then a couple of days later, I was summoned to see him in the playground, and he came and stood next to me, and he said hi, and I said hi, and then I was waiting for him to say something else, and he didn't really say anything, so we were just standing there sort of, scuffing our feet. And then finally he asked if I'd be his girlfriend, and I said yes. And then we used to meet at lunchtime and after school, and he'd write me these French love letters, and he'd read them out, and I had absolutely no idea what they said, but the way he said it, it just sounded so absolutely beautiful. And when he wasn't reading these letters, he didn't say a thing. And so it was up to me, to fill in the gaps of the conversation. And then after a while, as much as I liked the letters, it started to get really quite draining. Like every band I said I liked or whatever opinion I had, he'd sort of agree with every single thing that I said. And apart from these French love letters and the occasional French kissing, I felt like our relationship wasn't really going anywhere. And then our relationship went downhill, quite literally. We met after school and he was walking me home, and then halfway home I realised that I actually had ridden my bike to school that morning. And I was like, oh no, I've got to go and get my bike. My mum will kill me. And he's like, oh no, it's fine, because he was actually walking next to me with his bike. He said, it's okay, I'll double you. And I was like, I don't know, it might just be better if we work. He's like, no, I do it all the time. He had a twin sister, and he said, I do it with Jenny all the time. So he showed me how to sit on the crossbar of his bike. So I did that, and then he was riding along, and actually I was quite impressed because, Chris normally didn't really have opinions of his own, but suddenly he was like, ride my bike, and I was being doubled along by this assertive French-speaking boyfriend, wind in my hair. It was really romantic. And then we reached the school, which is sort of situated on the top of the hill, and my bike was right down the bottom. And so it was just sort of a moment before, sort of at the start of a roller coaster before, when the moment, that first part when you go down, that I thought, oh, maybe we should walk this part, but it was too late. We were off down the hill, and then sort of out of nowhere, a motorbike came, and he swerved to miss it, and at which time my foot got caught in the spokes, sort of threw me up into the air and banged down onto the road and dragged me metres down the road. I had all this gravel off my face and blood bursting out of my mouth and my ears and bits of teeth. It was terrible. An ambulance was called, and I had an x-ray, and it confirmed that I'd broken not one but two sides of my jaw and wasn't able to speak. But the tragic part of the story is there was only 1 week left of school, and my head swelled up to the proportion of a Bratz doll or a lollipop or something, and I wasn't allowed to leave the house until the swelling went down. I had to go into hospital and get all the gravel fixed and get my jaw wired shut. And so I was so upset that I couldn't go into school, with these broken bones. So I went into hospital and got all of that fixed, and then when I came back, Chris felt terrible. He actually came out of this totally unscathed, I don't know how, and he came over to visit me, and it was as if his mother had said to him, you really should buy something on the way over and take it there. So he bought me a big bunch of flowers and, of all things, a box of Dara Lee hard-scented chocolates, which is just the thing you want when your mouth is wired shut. And even though Chris came out of this totally unscathed, it was some kind of catalyst for a writing block for Chris, because he didn't write me any more French love letters. So he used to come over and just sit next to me on the lounge, didn't say a word, and because my mouth was wired shut, I could no longer fill in the vast chasms of conversation. So he'd hold my hand until it got really sweaty, and then he'd sort of take it off and wipe it on his leg and hold my hand, and he kept apologising all the time, and I just thought, I just can't take this anymore. So I thought, we've got to break up. I can't do this anymore. And I thought, it's really, really callous, to break up with someone in a piece of paper. I had this notepad that I wrote things down. I was like, that's like the equivalent of these days breaking up with someone in an email or text. It's really, really heartless. So I thought, I've got to at least try. So my jaw wired shut, I said to him, oh. And he was like, what? And he was asking, because often he got me a smoothie or, pureed leftovers or, he was like, can I do this? And I was like, I was writing on the pad, no. And so I said, I tried again. And he still didn't get it. So I had to write down on the paper, I think we need to break up. And he said, okay, and he got on his bike and rode home. And I learnt a really valuable lesson that summer when I sat home broken and mute and drinking pureed turkey smoothies, that if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Melissa Jacobs. Melissa's a young writer and lives up in the Blue Mountains.